Octaves. What exactly are they, and how can we use them on our guitar to make the parts we play more interesting? Welcome back to the channel, you guys. Hope you're having a great day today. What you just heard was an example of using octaves in a melodic context. So what we're going to do is break down some of those ideas for you guys today, and hopefully you can incorporate them into your playing. Now, when I'm not just playing straight single note passages, I really rely on two intervals. That's the interval of a third and the octave. Now, previously I've done a whole lesson on thirds. You can check it out by clicking the link above there. Really great and interesting stuff. But today we're going to focus on octaves, which is probably my second most relied upon interval. And there's a reason why. They're very natural to use, and they really give a thickening and a doubling effect. And when you stagger them, a really nice kind of back and forth. So let's jump in and break down some of the ideas I used in that opening solo. So there's a worksheet to go along with today's lesson. If you support the channel on Patreon, that will be made available to you guys for free. If you don't do Patreon, but you're still interested in the worksheet, which kind of expands upon what we're doing today, you can grab it from the tab store. I'll put a link to that above. Other than that, let's jump straight in. All right, so let's kick things off by looking at how to play octaves. So there's two main shapes. There is a third shape that I use that's on the worksheet as well, but let's just cover the main ones that'll help you guys get all over your guitars using octaves. So the main shape is, let's play a G note here. If you go 2 frets over and 2 strings down, that's going to give you your upper G. Now this in-between string, if you're not just using your fingers or hybrid picking, you're going to have to mute that by just flattening your index finger. So when you play those two notes, I'll try to dial back a little bit of the gain here. So on your 6th string, that is how you play your main shape for octaves. And if we do a G scale, you can just hear how thick that is instead of, if we octave it. Now on 5th string and 3rd string, that is the same shape as well. So you can use that exact same shape on your 5th string. So if we play the C scale, so jumping between 5th string and 4th string, or sorry, 6th string and 5th string rather, very easy because you're using that same shape. Now as we go to the 4th string and the 3rd string, we have to widen out our shape because the interval between the 3rd string and the 2nd string is a major third and not a perfect 4th like the rest of the guitar. We have to kind of widen them out. So if we go back to our G, C, then if we go down to an E, we have to widen it, and then A. So you can move these shapes anywhere on your guitar, doubling up whatever kind of melody you want, but those are the main shapes. So 2 over 2 down, 2 over 2 down, and then you have to widen and widen. Okay, so let's look at some examples of how we can use these. All right, so let's kick things off with lick number 1. Here we go. We're going to be using the key of E major. Now what we're going to do is just go down the E scale. Now we're not going to use like block octaves like this, that kind of stuff. What we're going to do is break it up. So we're going to play the top note of the scale, which is E. This is the root note. Then we're going to play the 3rd string E, and then it's going to lead down. So the 3rd string is always going to be leading 1 note ahead of 1st string. It sounds like this. Okay, so that's the lick. All right, so it's a great way to kind of, yeah, just break up your solo. So if you're, mostly just using single note stuff and then you break out that, or you use a combination of like solid playing and then breaking it up, it's really interesting. So I'll play it one more time really slow, and then I'll show you an alternate way to play the same thing. Okay, now what you could do is lead with the first string. So instead of leading with the third string to the next note of the scale, we'll reverse it. So we're going to start on third string instead of first string. So just basically the reverse. Okay, so it can go either way depending on what works with the melody that you're using. All right, so let's check out lick number 2. This is another one that I use often in my soloing. We'll use this one on A minor pentatonic, and we're just going to jump through the scale using octaves. So again, we're just using our 4 kind of little shapes, this one. And as you can see, that just outlines a pentatonic shape. Okay, and you can break up the picking however you want. You could do 3 on the first octave, 1 on the second, so forth. You can break it up in many, many different ways, or you can just use part of it. Or something up higher or whatever. There's a million ways to break it up. But if you just sort of get used to kind of cruising through those shapes over top of your pentatonics, it's an instant way to kind of like, how do you say it? Just break out of like the nature of the scale. So if it's sounding too much like you're just kind of cruising over a scale, this is a great way to break it up. And again, instead of just going from your thick strings to your thin, like ascending, you could certainly do it backwards, which I also do. So that's another really interesting way to kind of break up your normal soloing and use some octaves. All right, so now let's switch gears and look at a riff. So I'm going to give you guys kind of a generic pentatonic riff in A minor, and then we're going to thicken it up with some octaves. Now this is something like Stevie Ray Vaughan used all the time too, something like this. Just taking a basic little lick and octaving it. So that's what we're going to do today. So here we go. Let's look at the riff. We're just going to use A minor pentatonic, and then we're going to use some chromatics. Okay, so we're just going to use those notes, but here's the riff. Okay, so there's the riff, and if you want to thicken it up or kind of create something interesting, we will add our octaves. So a person could maybe play through it with single notes for a couple times and then just like kick on a fuzz pedal and hit some octaves, and it would sound unreal. So anyway, here's what we're going to do. We're going to use these octaves, and then we're going to use, obviously when we get to our higher strings, the wider stretch octaves. So it sounds like this. And again, this is off the worksheet, so if you wanted to kind of like have a paper copy to really get it down, you could print one off and follow along. But anyway, let's try that again nice and slow. And then up to speed. All right, so now let's wrap things up with a little octave finger exercise. This will really help get that muscle memory of those octave shapes into your fingers. So what we're going to do is go on G here. Then we're going to ascend through the G scale using those octaves. Then we're going to flip it around and go to this shape. Now there's 2 strings in between. There we go. And there we go. So a little bit more awkward. It's first string, fourth string, second string, fifth string, third string, sixth string. So pretty tricky stuff, but let's just play it slowly. When you're doing a finger exercise, you want to start nice and slow before you, bring up the speed. So let's just look at the fingering. Here we go. loop it, and do it all over again. Thanks so much for watching, you guys. Hope you enjoyed this lesson. If there's any other concepts you'd like to see me tackle on this channel, let me know in the comments below and I'll check them out and maybe make a little bit of a list so that we can tackle some more lessons together, which I love to do. And if you want to support the channel, Patreon, Etsy store, you can grab the worksheet or any other things over there. That helps me out a ton as well. Have yourself an amazing day, you guys. Take care.